Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Helpline show on mental health and well-being. You're here with myself, Satnam Singh, and we've got two lovely people in today to discuss about mental health and well-being and what they do to support the people out there. So I'm going to pass over to my first guest, Benji, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name's Tranjit and I work with families and children.
Perfect. And Benji?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm Tranjit Kaur and I'm part of the Sikh Helpline, and I am point of contact for callers that call the Sikh Helpline.
Fantastic. So Tranjit, just firstly, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you for, no, of course, no. Thank you for letting people know what you're going to let them know about all the lovely work you do, and obviously some tips of how to deal with mental health, and obviously your experiences and what you've done. First question really is, how did you start working with families and their children?
I've always been passionate of helping other people, and I kind of fell into this really probably about 20 years ago, working for a charity, and it was Action for Children.
Okay. And
I just started volunteering there, and from that I started just doing some education, social care qualifications to kind of start actually really working in depth with families and children. And this was when I opened a key working service, and that was to help parents that have just had children with a diagnosis of an illness.
Like autism maybe?
So autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, and even any kind of mental health. And they were young children and they wasn't sure how to deal with it. So the key working service was just to point them to the right direction and the services that they can access, which they were unaware of. So that kind of where I started from. And from that, started working with families and started becoming a family support worker, intense family support worker for children's services. And from that, started learning to deliver programs for parents, parenting programs, which was just kind of helping parents to deal with their children's behaviour mainly. And it was looking at services they can access again, because a lot of parents as well didn't know who to turn to for certain kind of problems, support and help. So I did a lot of work, intense work with families who went through maybe abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and all different types of kind of experiences parents have gone through.
Do you do it with the adults as well?
Yes.
If there's an adult as well?
So obviously when I just mentioned about working with parents as well, it obviously trickles to the children, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So my aim was to obviously help parents, but then help the next generation in the sense of children.
Yeah.
So helping them, doing the parenting programs is just giving them tips on how to maybe control their children's behaviour or help their children.
Okay.
And that led me to working there for probably many years, over a decade. And that's when I, probably 10 years ago, going to work, started doing NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis.
What's NLP?
So NLP is it's a therapy where it's about the neuro. I'll explain exactly what. So N means neuro, so it's like neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro means when we start how we think, our thoughts, our experiences, our beliefs, and that is filtered through the 5 senses.
Okay.
So visual,
touch, smell,
So through those, and linguistic is how we use verbal or non-verbal communication. And that could be internal, external.
Yeah.
So I kind of worked on that. And then also programming is just our behaviours and our patterns that we repeat. So anything that we've kind of, gone through our childhood, we're going to repeat those behaviours. So trauma, for example.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question. It might be a silly question, but because you've had the experience, you might be able to answer this. So, when they say not one symptom or one illness is the same. So if somebody who's suffering from Asperger's or something, or I know there's 100 types of autism, but Asperger's, is it like one set of tools fits all, or is there different differentiated things for each individual person?
I think it's each individual person. It's everybody's different.
Yeah.
So we've got to tackle it in a way when we meet. When I coach and counsel people and
Yeah.
give therapy to people. It's about everybody's individual. So for someone with Asperger's, we've got to look at really the family background
Yeah.
and what's their environment, because the environment can impact, you know, the way their diagnosis is, or their identity, their behaviour. There's a lot of factors. It's not just the environment. It could be quite a lot of factors, and that could be cultural. You know,
Yeah.
how us, you know, Sikhs and even, you know, people of different colour maybe tackle Asperger's or autism. I mean, for me, back when I used to work with pet families, they used to think it was just them, that they're being naughty. It's not an illness.
What's a PET? What does PET stand for?
Sorry?
PET, P-E-T, did you say?
No, Asperger's.
Oh, Asperger's,
Yeah,
sorry, my
Asperger's,
bad.
yeah.
So I just want to bring Ranjit Benji into this. So from the Sikh Helpline point of view, someone who calls you, rings you up and says, I'm going through X, Y, Z, how would you differentiate and how would you know to where that person needs to be? What would you guys do as a Sikh Helpline?
With the helpline, we get many calls from parents. As
Yeah.
Tranjit was saying, it kind of starts off with the parents. So we do get many calls from parents talking about their children, their teenagers, young adults as
Yeah.
well, going through mental health and wellbeing disorders. So it could be schizophrenia, it could be depression, etc. So where we would fit in, we would kind of like, and also they need the support and help as well,
Yeah.
which is very important because they feel alone. The calls that we get in, they can't share things with family because they're going to be judged.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of supporting them, guiding them, helping them, and we've got trained volunteers that would work with them. So people from different medical professions, we work with third parties. So in these cases, when we do get calls, we'll be providing the mental and emotional wellbeing support, as well as them gaining services from like their GP. So sometimes they wouldn't know that they need to go to their GP, they need to discuss it with their GP. It might be medical intervention that needs to take place, and then we'd continually work with them and
Right.
see where we would kind of signpost them as well. So it's not one thing, it's always kind of like in underlying factors.
So you get all the information and then
yes.
then you have a system where it needs to go.
Absolutely,
Fine.
yeah, that's how we generally work.
Okay. Tranjit, just going back to yourself. So how do you work and help children who are suffering from anxiety, low self-esteem and mental illness? Mental illness. What do you do with that?
So the intervention I provide is I do timeline therapy. So, and that's another therapy that looks at negative emotions in children and in adults. It's not just related to children, it's in ourselves. We all have negative emotions that arise, which is fear, anger, sadness, hurt, guilt. And it's about actually looking at the root cause. So for me, it's when I'm doing therapy with children, I have to, it's because some children, they're young enough to kind of not really express themselves. So first of all, for getting them to understand their emotions and their feelings, because a lot of the times children don't know how to express themselves, and it's about actually, first of all, making them aware of it, that how are they feeling, so it's therapeutic creative play with children. So it could be, creative play in drawing.
So sensory things,
drawing, but also talking to them and communicating with them and listening to them, because a lot of the parents that I work with, and it's not fault of their own, I think it's just that they're not aware of how to listen to their child. So it's about giving them that awareness that actually children have got feelings too. And going back onto the parent side of it, how I've do workshops on conscious parenting. So I get them to be aware of themselves, because a lot of the time as parents, and I'm a parent of 2 children myself, before I was aware of conscious parenting is that they don't focus on their own emotions, they focus on their children being naughty or displaying behaviours or mental health behaviours, or that they don't understand themselves. So I always say that having the awareness and how am I feeling as a parent, instead of so as a parent, am I am I conditioned? I'm conditioned with all the stuff that I got parented with.
Yeah.
So am I transforming that onto my child?
So are you saying that some of these things, like we had somebody earlier who was gave an interview, he said these things are hereditary. So it's
genetics.
Absolutely. So one would say monkey see, monkey do, right? So if my parents are doing this, then that's the right way. And that's what we got to do. So how do we know what's right or wrong then? I mean, it's a difficult one. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But how do you know? How can you tell that to the parent who says, well, I'm doing this in good faith and I've not challenged, I'm not hurting this person. I'm not in my intentions are not to hurt this person. How can you then change their mindset? How do you do that?
So for me, like I said, is being self-aware. So first of all, getting the parents, are they actually, disciplining their children or speaking to their children through anger, hurt, or guilt, or are they speaking through the child through compassion, self-compassion, or empathy, or love? And so it's all about how are they, what place are they coming from to actually speak to the child? Is it through their own values, their own beliefs? Because a lot of the time we, as parents, have grown up what we've been taught. Like you just says, monkey say, monkey do. We're a mirror to our children. So when we're saying our child's behaving this way, so I'll give you an example. I had a parent probably a couple of weeks ago saying, my child's very angry and doesn't listen to me, and I'm not sure why you're so angry. I mean, there was domestic violence in the house for one, and that's one of the reasons that he's probably picked up from. And they're no longer living in that environment anymore. However, he's picked up being angry when, he's picked up a lot of these behaviours through mom being angry. So I says to mom, have you kind of looked at your own, not in a way to blame. It was just about let's look at ourselves first, because our children are a mirror of us in the sense. I'm not saying that across the board, because people might disagree, thinking, well, actually, I don't scream and shout, or I don't take, do things that my children do, but we unconsciously we do. So in my line of work, we look at the unconscious behaviour. So what I mean by that is a lot of stuff that is stored in our memories. So imagine your phone, at the front of your phone, you've got all your apps.
Yeah.
So imagine that's your conscious mind. And the back of your phone is the hard drive, all your memories are stored, all your mechanics. And imagine they've all been programmed with everything you've kind of downloaded and put down. And look at human beings of being like that themselves, of being programmed.
Yeah.
So our children have been programmed in the sense of, their beliefs, their values are all stemmed from the parents. So we've got to really look at ourselves and how we as parents can change that. So going back to your question on good or right or wrong, there isn't no right or wrong in parenting. We weren't handed a book, and I wish we were, because me parenting when I first had children wasn't easy. It's only when I learned the tools 10 years ago about NLP, what I do now, and timeline therapy, I discovered it was me. It wasn't my children, it was me, the way I was behaving.
This does not give any other child who's watching the permission to say,
no.
Mom, Dad, it's all your fault.
There's no blame, and that's what I want to tell people, that we shouldn't blame each other. We should learn from each other. And equally, what I'm saying is that we need to have a balance with our children of be able to communicate with each other, and we don't do that. We listen to reply, we don't listen to understand. And when we start listening to understand and really listen to our children, that's when actually things are going to change.
So why don't we? This goes to both of you. Why don't we listen?
It's the awareness, isn't it?
Why don't we listen to our children? What's the problem?
Absolutely, it's awareness, and then it's also cultural issues as well, in the fact that, like, if other people are behaving in a particular way, that as parents we have to behave in that particular way, because those are the types of calls that we get in as well, where we get parents calling up and their children are going through mental depression, anxiety, panic attacks, but it's like it's hidden. It's like they don't want to kind of disclose it to anybody. They don't want to share it with anybody because they feel it's shame. So
why do they think it's shame? I know it's a bit off topic. Just want to know, for variety.
It's they don't want to show people their vulnerability, do they? They don't want to show people that they can't cope, and that's where I think in our culture, I think many cultures as well.
Yeah,
I really feel that we've got suppressed emotions, and having the suppressed emotions, we're not able to be open and honest. And this is what I want to teach parents and children, and that's why a lot of the knock-on effect, because our parents have got mental health and it's knock-on effect to children. And I want to tell parents to be very open and authentic to their children, about how they feel.
So what are the signs that somebody... Sorry, Benji, go ahead.
Also, people think it's just themselves that are
Yeah.
going through it. So when we're first point of contact for calls, and I say it's not just yourselves, it's a fact, it's a lot of people that are going through this at this moment in time. They feel better.
Yeah.
They feel better. So it's one of those things where they think they're alone and it's just them. And when they seek support, it's only then they realise that actually it's a lot of people that are going through the same thing.
So can the Sikh Helpline... I was going to come on to the pandemic afterwards. Is the Sikh Helpline there to give them signposts and help and things like that?
Absolutely, that's what we're there for. That's the service that we offer. We're there to help them, guide them, support them, and also, say to them that it's not just themselves that are going through it. The moment we say that, it just changes.
Brings them down, does it?
Yeah, it brings them down, makes them feel better. It's just because they realise actually it's not them.
No.
Because the breakdown in the past, people used to talk to their families, and it used to be that family environment, the elders, and disclose how they feel if they're feeling sad, emotional, and they used to be uplifted.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic as well coming in place, we just had a call last week where somebody's grandfather had passed away, and also another part of their family member, and that individual used to go to those people for support and help, but now they're not there. She was struggling. She was struggling for that support, and she called the helpline.
And that's where you picked
and
in
then
and
we
support.
picked it up. And
So tying in with that, there where I was saying my next question is going to be, how has the pandemic impacted mental health and well-being of children and adults?
I mean, like Sikh Helpline have probably helped many children and many adults as well. And like myself, I've received many calls from parents and children themselves. And because I work with different organisations, I've got referrals. It's impacting the way that there's fear and anxiety around that. They like Ranjit just pointed out, they're alone. They don't know who to kind of speak to, and if they do, speak to someone, are they going to be judged about it? And for me, helping these children, it's all about making them feel that that they've been listened to, and actually it's okay to feel that emotion, and actually, it's good to talk about it. And the techniques that we give is get them to be aware of it first, but then also get them to focus on the trigger. What's the trigger for them to be feeling this way, and how? And through the COVID, the lockdown, it's been the isolation, and children also are in their rooms a lot.
A lot of people are saying it's toxic environments as well, and things like that. Sorry, you can...
So I was just going to say, from our perspective, we've seen that it's parents and elders that are filtering through their fear on children. So with what's happening with the pandemic and isolation, lockdown, parents are nervous and children are feeling that as well and picking that up as well. And also, we're human beings, we're used to interaction, social interaction, that's very important. So it's kind of giving individual strategies. So what we do is we give individual strategies to say, okay, how about going out for a walk? How about going for going for a jog, or sitting down together, having a meal together as a family, and that just completely changes the whole aspect of the situation as well, because people are stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't know how long the pandemic's going to go on for. So just saying, use this time constructively. So, go out, exercise.
I'm glad you said that, because something that this is a personal question from me to yourselves. I think the generation today suffering with mental health is very important. But you said go out, do activities, but the generation of today are on phones and tablets. It's all about social media saying this, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever. They're telling you to do this, and that's the way of doing it. And you're conforming to things like that, but therefore those are unrealistic targets. So could that be a factor? I don't know. That's a question I've always wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think that is probably a factor for sure, because they're so kind of conditioned to go on their phones and go on their, laptops and everything. But it's like Ranjit says, we've got to give them the awareness to do different things, because people are so rigid in their thinking. They can't think of anything else to do. But in the sense of kind of what you just mentioned, the factor of being isolated and actually nothing else to do is actually giving them different strategies, like Ranjit just mentioned. And for me, it's about changing their mindset, because the bottom line is we're not even teaching our children how to empower their mind, how to think positively. And it's not just about thinking positively. It's more, it goes more depth than that. And what I mean by that is actually is I think exercise is important for, you know, for mental health and physical activity,
health,
but also in hand, mind-body connection is inseparable. It goes together. And what I mean by that is that we've got, when we exercise, you know, our brain reaps rewards, doesn't it? When we eat healthy, our body reaps rewards, so that it impacts both.
But you said you're not like, you know, we don't coach our children or teenagers how to do things correctly. Social media is coaching them and teaching them.
Yeah.
So what are we saying that because I think mental health has really hit off and it's gotten a lot worse. It's been the classic Asperger's, you know, autism, but the anxiety and the depression's on the increase.
Yes.
And that's more that I've seen is it's always this.
Yes.
It's you know, it's every 5 seconds you're checking Instagram again and things like that. Isn't that a form of?
Of course it is. That's a form of mental health itself. That's a form of mental health itself, because we're so addicted. Because, you know, like we talk about addiction of alcohol, substance abuse, and those are a lot of referrals I get as well, and you know, many more. But though that's an addiction, and the addiction is when sometimes I think I do it myself. I put my phone down, thinking, oh, I need to check that email, or so it's, as a parent, I think it's really important to put your phone away.
Yeah.
Put your phone away, have conversations like Ranjit says, and also change the dynamics in the family. Like even when you're having a meal, switch the TV off. That's a strategy. Go for a walk. I mean, for me as a family, every weekend, or even if we're not working, in the evenings we go for walks. Since my children were that high, we've been going for walks, and that is our maybe family time.
Yeah.
And I know we're very busy people. However, we can never busy for our family, are we? We shouldn't be, and we are though. And what I mean by that, in there, we're so busy thinking about other things than actually being in the present moment. So we think from all the past traumas, we bring it into the here and now. And the strategy I teach is be present. You know, focus. I always say to my children as well, focus on what you want.
Yeah.
So anxiety, let's get into anxiety, is when we focus on the future, things that we haven't got. And depression, we focus on the past, the things that have happened that should have happened a different way. So it's all about is stripping back the onion, so to speak. I always look at the
layers.
core, the layers, because we're so kind of jam-packed with these layers and we don't get to the core. And the core is be yourself, be authentic.
Yeah.
Why are we actually taking on everybody's stuff?
Because it goes back to the question I posed. You're playing a role. You're keeping up appearances for something that you don't need to. But who are you keeping these appearances for? I keep saying it to a lot of people. Absolutely, these people don't pay your bills.
No.
They don't put food on your table.
No,
they don't do nothing. But yet you want to take a picture next to a Lamborghini, which isn't even yours, just to go on and go, yeah, man. What's all that about? See,
and then people perceive that in the way, oh, I need to do that.
It's silly.
And even like, you know, youngsters, they're teenagers, like we were talking about mental health, are looking at social media. Oh, I want to be like that. I should be like that. Or maybe so they're getting all these feelings of like, I'm like that. So they're comparing to other people. And a lot of the stuff has actually been maybe, you know, airbrushed or something like self-image for young girls. I've had young girls coming to me and they hate their bodies.
But again, in children,
and that's mental health.
It is, but it's been created over the last 10, 15 years through being this social busybody and living up to this image. Because when my mom used to drag me from the ear to bring me inside, now you can't drag them from the ear to take them outside.
Which child abuse then, isn't it?
Not, you know what I mean, without dragging with it. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
because then kids are like, quick to say, right, my mom's just told me off, I'm going to ring up Childline, or I'm going to, and there's nothing wrong with, obviously, you know, we've got to be very vigilant about abuse, and it's really,
of course, absolutely.
But the thing is, the mental health element that Ranjit is, you know, getting all these calls as well, and myself, is that we need to be aware of it as parents, because we're shoving it under the carpet.
Yeah,
Well,
and
this
and I
doesn't-
think also parents don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
They're struggling with how to cope with it, so they need like support. They need services helping them, because those are the types of. I mean, had a call come in a couple of weeks ago, and it was regarding her son being stuck in his bedroom, and he was just sleeping, and he was substance abusing, he was on painkillers, etc. And you know, I just spoke to her about compassion, about love, on the back of what Tranjit just said, and you know, about like just showing him that, and she was dealing with the anger side of it, because she was struggling herself as a mother who wants to see their child like that. It's very hurtful for parents.
So speaking to you, Ranjit, about that question itself, how do support services such as the Sikh Helpline benefit individuals experiencing with mental health and well-being then? So what's a typical thing that the Sikh Helpline will do?
So what I spoke to her, because I'm the first point of contact for the calls that come into Sikh Helpline. I spoke about compassion, what Tran said, love, and you know, about putting your feelings aside at this moment in time, because you're here, you've called the Sikh Helpline to basically help and support your child. So gave her strategies about, you know, just deal with the situation at hand first, and see you're going to move forward with that. Assigned her to a volunteer, experienced volunteer, who then she spoke to, etc. And then the volunteer spoke to the child, and it was just kind of getting things moving and speaking to someone. I think the most important thing is with Sikh Helpline, they're not just active listeners, they actually intervene and help, signpost, and obviously work with individuals to get to where they want to be as well. So it was just about like, you know, go out for a simple walk, telling the child, you know, you have to go out for a walk to feel better. And the outcome of that call was absolutely brilliant, because that individual felt better. So it's that intervention. It's about speaking to individuals, and people are feeling they're alone in all this when they're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, of course. And what about yourselves then? How are you being as like, you know, another service offering it? Do you have this echo the same way? Is that some of the things you do?
Absolutely, and like Ranjit just mentioned, is about that compassion, that listening. But the strategy I give to parents is actually, you know, first of all, is talk to your child, ask them, and I know a lot of the times they're going to say children don't just listen to us, but if you create an environment that is kind of open and open with communication, but also an environment that's loving and compassionate. However, people, like I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they go, actually, when you're in it, you can't be compassionate and loving because your child is misbehaving, and how can you actually reason with that? But I always look at it, but first of all, we need to just take it back.
Glad you said that, because that's my next question.
And that's the example of the call that you mentioned.
Yeah, so
the mom had to take the step back and put her feelings aside for a split second.
So then what are the therapies then? What are the tactics that you guys both what you would use and what you would say?
So like I said, I look, when I see a child, and kind of do my therapies, looking at the root cause. So looking at triggers, what's causing that behaviour. So for example, I had a parent that the child kept running away. So the child kept running away, and they kept searching for the child and coming back. And then once we got to the cause of why the child kept running away, it's because mom's always at work and dad was always at work. There was no time for attention. And soon as so what would happen? The child would run away, and then what would happen? The parent would be searching for this child. The attention will be on that child, and when the child come back, the attention will be solely for a couple of weeks focused around the child, and then that's it. That's done. Parents busy in their own thing, and all the child really wanted, this is a simple thing, was attention. And was the parents' attention, and also just to be noticed. And because the child was a teenager, the child was in the bedroom, and the parent thought it's okay, they're doing fine, maybe doing their work. They weren't. They're on social media trying to get attention, and it was the wrong kind of attention. And what I might mean by that, a lot of children going on their phones, and I think Sikh Helpline do a lot of calls around abuse, grooming, and I've done some training around that, making parents aware of the triggers, the flags of grooming online. But however, going back on the tips I give is actually for the parents first to be aware, then get the background history of the family, because I always want to look at how is this family functioning.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I want to look at the background history, and once I understand that, I start looking at how that child's feeling in that environment. And if it's the environment, so what I mean in the environment, if there's domestic violence or anything going on in the environment that's not helping the child, that's going to impact the behaviour.
Yeah.
And then their identity. They don't know where they belong in that family. So I look at that hierarchy, and that is logical levels of change.
And are these your strategies then?
Yeah. So I'm not going to say I kind of always look at the logical levels of change. I look at there's many aspects. So what I mean by that is looking at the root cause, looking at the triggers. Why? For example, I always say what's the problem? Because a lot of the time people always focus on the problem. So I say, how's that a problem? And what's preventing you to find the solution? So therapeutic changes by communication, talking therapy, also play therapy, creative play, but also listening to them. And children never get that thing.
So what's your age range?
So recently it was from 6 till 18, no, older than that.
Really?
So I had another child that I worked with that was this is during the COVID, and I was coaching a child that was so scared of going back to school, and I had to do Zoom calls, and that was just 2 weeks prior for him to go back to school. He's petrified because he had no positive association to school anymore. So my strategy was getting the child to think of some positive associations to school, and he thought about his playing with his friends. But also this child, like you mentioned, was stuck on the parent just stuck him on his iPad.
You mean they just put him there?
Put him there, and he was like, yeah. And I suggested activities, interact with your children, and how I kind of looked at the root cause of it. The dad hated school, so he's gonna put that onto his child, because when I was speaking to the parents together, he goes, I hated school, and the child was just right there. So that kind of influences a child's thinking behind school. And also, it's like ourselves, if we through the whole of this COVID, we going back to work is a bit anxiety, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And for children, it's heightened. For children, it's like, no, how am I going to make friends again? And not even children, it's social anxiety, isn't it? And we can look at that as mental health as well, can't we, Ranjit?
Transitioning back to a bit of a new normality. So it's how to adapt to that new normality, and it's about giving individuals strategies on how to go about it, take each step as a time. Also with gyms opening, etc., people going back to exercise.
Recreational sports,
they're anxious about going back to places like that, because obviously they've been not as active as they normally would. People would be going to work, children going to school, walking children to school. So it's getting back into things again, and people feeling anxious about that. But there's a way, and it's about taking a step at a time. So not looking at the bigger picture, because it's quite daunting. That's the kind of advice that we would give. And it's about like just taking baby steps to get to where you need to be, because we have these expectations. We put these expectations on ourselves, and that's what causes the stress.
And our children, we've got these high expectations on our children, and we expect them to achieve these goals, but ourselves, we're feeling them as well. And our mental health, for myself as a parent, last year, I think, we all go through anxiety, we all go through depression, and there's not one person that can't say they haven't, and we have. And what I want to tell people, it's okay to feel that way. We don't need to suppress it. And
talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's communicate, and let's be open and honest, and just start being yourself. And what I mean by that is let's not put other people's expectations and our culture, imprint on us, because if you think about it, children are imprinted on.
Well, they're a sponge, aren't they?
Yeah,
they absorb
imprinted
what you give.
on them from our beliefs. And I always say to children and even parents, scrap your belief systems, create your own. And these are strategies I teach people. Look at how do you perceive things in your life? Change them. If they're negative, change them. So disempowering thoughts to empowering thoughts, irrational thoughts so this is the anxiety tips. If you're thinking negatively, 95% sometimes people are thinking negatively. I say, well, let's start small steps, like Ranjit just started saying. Let's write down what we are thinking, because if it's out, it's like a weight off your shoulders. And then let's look at the evidence of what we're saying to ourselves. and how we are speaking to ourselves. Why don't we speak to ourselves with a bit of love and start loving ourselves? Because the bottom line is we're looking at all the things we're not good at.
Yeah.
And this is what children do and adults do. All the things that, that's wrong with us. Let's focus on the things that we can achieve and we can do.
So look at the positives.
Yes. So it's so empowering thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, with one of our callers, she was going through mental abuse. So, from a very young age, it was like expectations from family. And then obviously when she got married, it was mental abuse, etc. as well. And talking to her, I just kind of like mentioned to her that you've done a great job. You've done really well to where you are now. And the response there was, oh, thank you very much. Nobody's ever said that to me.
Yeah.
So the call just changed completely. She felt so much better. It was just like somebody had just acknowledged that she had done really well. And she kind of mentioned that not my parents have ever said that to me. And then she's trying to be a rock for everybody else. She's trying to be a rock for her husband, her children, her extended family. And that's what was causing a lot of her anxiety, her stress, her depression, and obviously with other health issues as well, because it all links. And when we're going through stress, anxiety, that's the causes of depression. And then thereafter, if you're not doing active things and keeping yourself healthy, you start kind of getting other medical conditions such as like high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. if you're not looking after yourself. So it's very, very important to show love and compassion. And we're all, going through something or another with what's happening with the pandemic, but it's a matter of being open and talking to individuals about it where you feel you're going to get the support and help.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for sharing these tips and these strategies. Guys, the help's out there. The Sikh Helpline's there. You can call them whenever you want. We can signpost you. We can put you in touch with the right people, the relevant people, put you in touch with Tranjit as well. Things like that, they're there, but you have to make the first step, because unless you don't let anybody know, we won't know you're suffering. So the support's there. Just reach out. From myself, Sadnam Singh, and my guests, thank you very much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.